Hi everybody, today we're at the Rush Creek site. This is in Liberty, Missouri, and this is a significant location that has to do with Zion's Camp. I'm with Sister Deanne Walker, and her husband are stewards of this property. If you'd like to come see it, I'll put the email in the description box below, so make sure to email before you come here. So she's going to explain just a little bit about the history of this place. This is a really significant spot.
This location is the end of the Zion's Camp March, when the people, the saints, were driven out of Independence. They came across the Missouri River, and they landed in the Liberty area. There was like 8 different locations that they created. Just little encampments.
Yeah.
And so the saints tried to stay together, but they also came into Liberty. They leased the land, some bought places, and they were given work to be able to take care of their families. So when that happened, they kept trying to get their lands back in independence, and they were really struggling. And the Lord gave a revelation to Joseph Smith that he needed to go and redeem that land. So he was instructed to gather a certain amount of men to go and get the land back. They contacted the governor of the state of Missouri, and he agreed to bring in a militia. They would gather forces, combine, and then go into independence to make sure that the land was taken back. Mm-hmm. On their march, they came into an area called Fishing River. It's not too far from here by car. It's probably 7 or 8 minutes at the most. And when they got to Fishing River, there was a big mob that came. And the mob came because they had just received word from the governor that he no longer was going to send the militia. So they came against the Mormons, and I will say Mormon at this point because that's what they were at the time. Yeah. They were the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but everybody called them Mormon.
Yeah.
So they came against the Mormons, and then there was a big miracle there at Fishing River that helped protect the members of Zion's Camp. And I will let you tell that story another time when you actually go see that site. It's pretty
Now, cool. Is there like an actual specific spot that you can go to?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have to get that from you later, and I'll do a video over there too.
Yeah. And there's, you can see the church where, from far, you can't go into the church, but you can see the church where they took refuge. But the storm was pretty massive, and the mob left. The members of Zion's Camp went, took refuge in a church, and I believe, I am not a church historian, but I believe it was the next day or very soon after, one person in the group came down with cholera. Now, in my research at the time, cholera was a worldwide epidemic.
Yeah.
People were dying all over, and so everybody was really afraid of cholera. Most people don't know how you get cholera. It is in contaminated water or contaminated food, and usually from feces of some sort. Mm-hmm. But once somebody gets it, it's highly contagious.
So that for Zion's Camp over there, that's where the first case of cholera.
It was on their way from Fishing River down here into Liberty.
Okay.
So they left the next morning after the Fishing River incident. They left. And it was very soon after, within that period of time, that they came down with first case of cholera. They came down into Liberty, and they camped, based on historical records, they camped about a half mile from a particular creek on the banks of Rush Creek. And this here is Rush Creek. Across the street is a house, and at the back of the house across the street is about where they had their encampment. There was a member of the church that had moved there from Independence that lived there. His name was George Burkett, and George Burkett had a lot of members of his family with him, and his wife, who happened to be a nurse. Joseph Smith came in. People knew that they had cholera. And George Burkett's wife was asked by Joseph Smith if she would help nurse these people back to health. and asked George if they could stay on that property. Well, he was afraid for the life of his family, so he was very reluctant to let them come. Based on George Burkett's journal, Joseph Smith promised him that no member of his household would get cholera and die.
Oh, wow.
So throughout that period of time, by the end of this whole difficult experience, no one in George Burkett's family that lived with him caught cholera. And their family actually were nursing the other people that had gotten cholera to health if they made it through.
That's pretty amazing.
It is really amazing. That's really a miracle.
Yeah.
That's a miracle. So through the course of the time of cholera, about 65 people caught cholera. Overall, only 15 people died, 13 members of Zion's Camp and 2 members that had come up and were living here from the Independence group of people.
And wait, and how large was Zion's Camp again? I can't remember the number.
It was just over 200, if I remember right,
okay,
that were part of Zion's Camp. And that includes men, and I don't know how many women, maybe 6 or 8 women, and then some children. So it was mostly men.
Okay, so 13 from Zion's Camp, like Zion's Camp itself, and then 2 members from Jackson County?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
But it's really cool to have Heber C. Kimball's journal and some of these other entries, because Heber C. Kimball ended up catching cholera as well. And he was not about to let it get him. So cholera, the symptoms of cholera come on instantaneously almost. And it's severe cramping in the stomach and body aches and fever, really high fever, and they can die within hours. And most often they do die within hours if they're going to die. In his journal, he said that he got up and he thrashed around in Rush Creek until the fever left him. And at that point, then he started to get better. So right over here, Rush Creek is fairly shallow. I mean, you can see in the videos, we've got rocks showing. Being August, it's on the low side right now. So usually these rocks do have water going over them. But here to the right is from the head of the creek until we go a ways down the creek and around a corner. Right here is the deepest part and the only part that you could really thrash around in. So, you know.
So it's like this spot, like right here?
No, it's to the right.
Oh, to the right. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
just right over there.
Okay.
You can't see because of the bushes. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
So, let's come up this way now.
Okay. Yeah, we get a lot of good information from Heber C. Kimball. He recorded a lot of church history and some really unique things. So
yeah, like for instance, just a side note, he also recorded in his journal about a natural spring. And we were able, because of that, we went looking and we were able to find a natural spring. And it was really, it was
like
really
here
neat.
on this property, or?
Yeah, just right across the creek.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it feeds into the creek.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really fun to have that kind of information.
Yeah.
But Zion's Camp was a real test of their faith in a lot of different ways. The march itself, they actually had split into 2. Hiram went north to collect people and Joseph went south. And as they were collecting people, they were marching. We say marching, they were walking to get to Missouri. And Hiram's group, they had a great time. They really bonded well. They got along. But then Joseph's group, there was great contention. And there's one man in particular that caused a lot of trouble. Well,
you know his name?
I don't know it, and that's one of those things I've kind of put out of my head, because for a while I just thought that wasn't very, I just thought that wasn't very good of him to create such issues. We're gonna go this way.
Okay.
And so I kind of purposely put that name out of my head, and I don't necessarily want to look it back up, but people do ask me that, so maybe I should. But through the course of that march, because of the contention, Joseph said that they would have a plague come upon them if they did not straighten out, and they didn't really straighten out. In the end, after all was said and done, they went back and met together in Kirtland, and they, went forward. And this man that created all the contention, he was not one that died, but he became a very good member of the church. Oh. And that's why I don't really want to remember his name, because this is what Christ is all about. He's all about repentance and forgiveness and change and growth. And so I like that part of the story, to recognize that we can be one way, but we can also learn and grow and become better through the atonement.
Yeah, and even under the, even the best of us can kind of buckle under the worst of circumstances and let our natural man kind of get to us.
Oh, without a doubt.
Now this right here,
okay,
I can't remember, is this a branch of Rush Creek?
So what we have is Heber C. Kimball's journal and other journals. I like to reference Heber C. Kimball just because he's an easy one. But he talks about, after the first 3 men died of cholera, they were put on a sled, and he and 2 other men drug them up the side of Rush Creek and buried them on a bluff next to a feeder creek. This here is the feeder creek.
Okay.
So it usually is completely dry about now, but we've had a pretty wet summer here in Missouri.
Yeah.
And
not that I would know, but it does seem like there's been a lot of rain. This is my first year in Missouri.
Yeah, it's been pretty wet. So this right here is the bluff that they buried them on. And you're going to ask, how do we know? Well, actually, let me tell you a story before we get to that.
Okay.
One of the 3 men with Heber C. Kimball, one of them's name was Noah Johnson. And Noah Johnson was the son-in-law to George Burkett. Noah Johnson actually came from Kirtland and marched in the Zion's Camp March. Mm-hmm. But remember, he wasn't a part of the household at the time that they came. So Noah helped bury the first 3 members, and then he went back to camp, and he contracted cholera and died himself. Mm. Now, I find that really interesting, that here he was, one of George Burkett's family, because he married his daughter. But he wasn't one of the household, and so he wasn't under that same protection. We get this story from a friend of ours who is actually not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's part of one of the, is it the remnant branches, or the, what are they called?
Well, the loose collection of them are like the restoration branches.
It's a restoration branch.
Yeah.
I get it wrong. He's part of the restoration branch, one of them. And he is a direct descendant of Noah Johnson. So George Burkett was like his great-great-great-grandfather, I believe. And his grandmother was Noah Johnson's wife, who was 4 months pregnant at the time that Noah died.
Oh my goodness.
So he has great gratitude for Zion's Camp and the things that happened, because, not because of it, but he was able, his grandmother was protected, and he now has life.
Yeah.
And that's part of his, part of that legacy. So that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
So in the 1950s, this was a dairy cattle ranch. So you can see up here the corn, that was part of the pasture.
Can we walk up there really quick?
Yes. Cattle, they like to walk on the same path all the time. So you can get a new batch of cows, and they will still walk the path that the other cows use, even though the other cows aren't there. So there was a cattle path, and we still have a little bit of the indentation of the cattle path right in here.
Oh yeah, you can totally see it.
Yeah. This was the cattle path, and up there was the pasture, all where the corn is. There's, I don't even know how many acres. There's probably 70 or 80 acres of corn in through there. So this is the top of the bluff that we see here. So in the 1950s, the farmer, he came out one day, and in Missouri we get lots of rain and it washes the dirt away. All of our waterways and our lakes are just, they're like filthy. You can't see, there's no clarity in the water.
Yeah.
And that's because all of the topsoil runs down into it. So with that cattle path that's always dirt, this is just grown into grass. It's washing the dirt away, and it's washing away anything that's there. And one day in the 50s, he found a skull, and there were some bones, and he called the sheriff. The sheriff's office came out, and they exhumed that set of bones, but in the process, they found 2 other sets. And so they sent him down to Missouri University in Columbia, and there they did some testing, they did historical research, they read journal entries, and they deemed these remains to be members of Zion's camp. They found 3 sets of remains, 1 man, 1 woman, and 1 child. In the 70s, the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ, they claimed those remains, and they took them to a place in Independence called the Mound Grove Cemetery, and they interred them there.
Now, just really quick, you guys, I've done a video over there, but it was before I started doing commentary on my videos. So if you want to go check it out now after this video, just look for Mound Grove Cemetery. There's a marker there that you wouldn't know how to get to unless you knew exactly where it's at in the cemetery. It's just kind of like toward the street, but like in the middle. But they have that marker for Zion's camp, and I read that part where it said that there were, you know, the 3 bodies that were discovered here and then moved to the cemetery. But until I met Deanne, I didn't know the backstory. I didn't know why that was. And so it's a real honor and pleasure to be here to talk to somebody that knows about this and can get us access to see this, like to see where the other members are buried.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty miraculous thing that happened, that they were discovered, and that there were some educated people that would be considered experts that could tell us who they were and what it was about, because now we have more knowledge of our history and what's happened, and you can't really feel it, I'm sure, through the camera, but there's a sacredness to this place, a sacredness to this property.
Yeah.
So back to the story, they took those bones, they interred them at the Mound Grove Cemetery, and if anybody knows our church history, you know, our prophets usually get buried in the Salt Lake Cemetery, and it's the same thing with the Reorganized Church. They buried their prophets there, and so they esteem them highly. There was a monument erected there by another organization, and they put the names of all 15 members that had died from Zion's camp. Like I said, 13 of them were members of Zion's camp that traveled from Kirtland or other areas, and 2 of them were not. So to get to the story of those 2, we have Sidney Gilbert, he did the Gilbert and Whitney store. He was called to Independence to open a store in Independence.
And by the way, you guys,
yes,
that store, it's still operating. It's changed hands between owner to owner, but my understanding is that the most recent owners of that location, they've like restored it to look like the original store. But you have that you can visit whenever you come to Independence, so I encourage you to do that. Most people just go to the visitor center and the temple lot, but just like 2 minutes away, just go check that out too. And there's also a sidewalk marker in front of it that's part of the Missouri Mormon walking trail in Independence. There's 14 markers, and that's one of them.
It's a really fun place to go too.
Yeah.
So Sidney Gilbert, he was kicked out, ran out of Independence. I'm going to back up now a little bit in this story. When he was in Kirtland, back up another step. Joseph and Emma had lost a set of twins, and a man named John Murdoch and his wife had a set of twins, and his wife, I believe her name was Phoebe, I think. Remember, I'm not a historian. Anyway, she passed away in childbirth. And so John took the twins and he offered them to Joseph and Emma to adopt them. And they took these twins in. Well, John also had 2 other children. He had a son just older than them, and then a daughter not too much older than that. And at one point, he was called on a mission. He went on a mission. You know, at that time, think about it, he didn't have anyone to take care of his 2 children. So he had to find other families that would tend his children while he was gone. He came back, and they spent time together, and then Joseph called him, or the Lord called him on another mission. And this time, no, it wasn't, maybe it was Phoebe. Anyway, Phoebe, the daughter, ended up at the Gilberts' home. And so when they moved up from Independence here into Liberty, she was living with Sidney Gilbert and his family. Sidney Gilbert lived somewhere in the vicinity of this land that we have just walked. Sidney ended up contracting cholera and he died. So he's one of the members that were not part of the Zion's Camp March. John Murdoch, during the march, he came back from his mission and he met up with the members of Zion's Camp. He marched in here into Liberty, and then there's 2 different stories that are told depending on which source you look at.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the one in John Murdoch's journal. He says that he was with Phoebe for a time, and I don't remember exactly the time, but she contracted cholera. And he sat with her until she died, and then they buried her here. Then they buried her. We have record in historical records that 11 people were buried here. However, at the time, especially here in Missouri, I know from personal family history that many of the people were buried in what they call the farm cemetery. Being that it was cholera and everybody was afraid of cholera, and that they were Mormons and people didn't want to create more issues, they would have most likely buried all 15 members here in this place that is on record. Mm-hmm. Now, another evidence that would show that that is most likely correct is Phoebe Murdoch. There is no record of where exactly she was buried, but she was the only child that died of cholera. And so they found a child's remains here, which would have to be Phoebe's. So more than likely all 15 are buried here, but we have historical record of 11 of them.
So that other site that people consider, or whatever, you said it was a farm cemetery. Is that talking about the Arthur farm?
No, what I'm saying is, so people would bury their loved ones on the farm. They would create cemeteries within their own farm. Yeah. So like my family, who many of them lived here at the time, but were not members of the church. We've got at least 2 farms that we have cemeteries on for different lines of my family. Okay. So yeah, that's interesting. And just for the record, I didn't grow up here, and neither did my husband. We were transplanted here by the Lord. Yeah.
Now, how long has it been for you since you've been in Missouri?
We've been in Missouri about 9 years now.
Okay, that's a long time.
It is a long time. I never thought it would be this long. But yeah, it's a long time. So, in our ward was a very influential man throughout the community. So he knew the sheriff really well. The farmer that owned the property was very antagonistic towards any members of the church. Everybody in the neighborhood, in the area, knows that there's a Mormon burial site here. Now, if you ask any member of the church, most of them don't know there's a burial site, but anybody who owns land around here knows there's a Mormon burial site here. And one person asked us, do you know that there's Mormons buried there? As though this is a big secret. It's like, yeah, actually we do. So this man in our ward was able to come with the sheriff, even though the farmer was not allowing people to come and see any of the sites for many years. He wouldn't allow people to.
And sorry, what time frame was this about?
So this would have been somewhere in the 70s that this man. Okay. He's now since passed. But he showed us where the sheriff showed him where those remains were found. And all we have to do is walk down here just a few steps. And he said it's right in this area that the remains were found. So this is where the dirt had washed off, and the bodies were buried, most likely in a row going that direction, because if they found 3 sets of remains, you know, side by side, which is what we were told it was, then the rest of them probably go this way.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's quite a few stories that go with Zion's Camp that really can be a strength to our testimony and our faith. I look at people like, first off, John Murdoch. John Murdoch. He went through so many hardships. He lost his wife. He lost his, 2 of his children. He placed them for adoption. And then he lost his daughter from cholera. He was called on missions and didn't have the time to be able to spend with his daughter, who was only 6 when she died. So, he could have looked at all that and said, this isn't fair. Why did God ask me to do this? What is this church all about? Who is Joseph Smith? But he had such a strong knowledge of the truth of all of this that he went on and he actually crossed the plains and went into Salt Lake City. He had remarried, and I believe he had 8 more children.
Wow.
So, he's a man of great faith. He left a legacy that we can all hold on to.
Yeah, there's people that leave for a lot less than what he went through.
That's exactly right. And we think that when we go through hard things in life, that we should be the exception. Heavenly Father's not listening to us. Our prayers aren't being answered. This isn't how it was supposed to be. But ultimately, Heavenly Father gives us the trials and the challenges that we particularly need to be able to return back to Him, because that's what this life is all about.
Yeah.
So I love the legacy of faith that John Murdoch left.
Okay, sorry about that. The GoPro overheated, of course. Even though it's a relatively cool day, it's only like in the low 80s or upper 70s, but that's just how it goes. But she was just about to talk about her appreciation for the story of Burkett.
Yeah, I love that George Burkett, he trusted the prophet. He trusted his family's life with the word of the prophet, knowing that the prophet speaks for God and God is good for his word, that he keeps his promises. And I have often thought about that strength that George Burkett and his family, his wife had to be in agreement as well, and the other members of his household. And for them to realize the promise, we need to remember that we will realize the promises that God makes to all of us individually and as a church as a whole, that will happen. And there's just so many great stories of faith, of power, of like Heber C. Kimball. He was not going to allow this sickness to overpower him. And then many of the members of the First Quorum of the 12 and many of the 70s were part of Zion's Camp. Brigham Young says that he would not have known how to lead the people across from Illinois to Salt Lake City if he hadn't been in Zion's Camp to witness Joseph's leadership.
Yeah.
That was a preparation for him and for many others. I think that we do not count our trials as our blessings enough, because it's through our trials and through the trials of the people that were in Zion's Camp that they were prepared and made ready to lead the people. And we too need to remember the Lord is preparing us for things.
Yeah, and maybe you're about to get to this, but isn't there the belief that because there was this cholera outbreak, it actually may have preserved Zion's Camp, because those that wanted to come attack, they were worried about contracting it themselves, right?
Yeah. So it was said by many people that were part of Zion's Camp that it was cholera that actually protected them from being destroyed by the mobs. And the mobs themselves did not come against them, and they made that known because of the cholera outbreak. What happened there in the Fishing River story was so profound. It was such a profound storm that both sides of that river the mobs and the saints, they both said it had to be of God. And cholera was definitely of God. He took 15 of those people to him. Joseph Smith, I need to memorize this quote, but Joseph Smith said that he wished basically he had mansions in heaven like theirs, because they gave their lives for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And many times people think that cholera was a curse, and that those who died were the wicked ones, but it was not so. They were the ones who gave their lives for the rest of us to have the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Now, help me clarify this, and I'm sure that you told me last time. So you guys, I've already been here once. I intended to record the last time, but I forgot my GoPro, of course. But actually, it's better that it worked out that way, because this is a nice overcast day, and so you can see the green a lot better. The colors aren't washed out. But I can't remember from last time. Is this point the furthest that Zion's Camp went, or was it over at the 8 Witnesses Monument that they disbanded? Or
so once they got to this point, people started to separate. When they got to the 8 Witnesses Monument, that's when it was officially disbanded. But once they were here, everybody knew they were not going to go into independence and reclaim that land. But it was official once they got to the 8 Witnesses Monument. But most of them didn't end up going over to the Arthur farm.
Yeah. Okay.
Because many of them started to go back or go to other family members that were here.
Okay. So basically, as far as I know right now, if you want to go to Zion's Camp historical sites, you can go to the 8 Witnesses Monument, which is here in Liberty. You can come here, but email first. I'm sure there's probably other Zion's Camp places, like between Kirtland and here. What'd you think?
Oh yeah, there's plenty of other stories that they had. I mean, they've got the site where Joseph Smith found a bone and said it was Zelph, one of the warriors of the Lamanites, and I mean, there's other stopping points along that route if somebody really wanted to do that.
Well, that person is me. I'm eventually going to go to all of them if I can. Okay, and then you have, if you want to, you can go to the Mound Grove Cemetery in Independence. When you go there, when you see the sign for Mound Grove Cemetery, they have the old RLDS emblem like on the cemetery sign, so that's kind of interesting. And then their prophet presidents of their church, like she was just saying. And then here in Liberty, so we have this 8 Witnesses Monument. We have, of course, the historic Liberty Jail. There's the 2 Alexander Donovan markers that are on the same street as Liberty Jail. You can just go watch my video that I did about that, and you'll see where they're at. And then the courthouse itself has a historical marker that has like a brief mention, which really I feel like there should have been more said on the marker, but it has a brief mention of Joseph Smith there. Do you know of any other places in Liberty, like any other like historical sites aside from, is Fishing River in Liberty?
Fishing River is not Liberty. I think it's an Excelsior Springs address, but we border Excelsior Springs, and it's not real far.
Yeah.
If you want to know where actually they walked, it would be what's called H Highway,
Okay.
which is, really not even a mile that direction, but you have to kind of go around to get there.
Does H Highway go over Fishing River? Like a bridge?
No. So
Okay.
H Highway stops, and then you have to go left, and it turns into another name, and I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
I couldn't drive you there from here very easily. I could get there, but I would kind of get lost.
Yeah.
So, but Fishing River, that's definitely, to know the stories of Fishing River, the story that happened there is really, read it in your Saints book.
Yeah.
It's very worth it. And it was I enjoyed seeing it.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to go there, hunt that down. I also want to go to, I think Alexander Donovan is buried in the cemetery here somewhere in Liberty.
In the Liberty, yeah.
So I want to go check that out. Do you know of any other Liberty sites?
No, I don't.
I don't think there are any, but if I find any, I'll let you know, but there probably aren't. So, okay.
Yeah. And this site is only not even a 5-minute drive from the jail.
Okay, yeah, this is, yeah, historic downtown Liberty, just right over there, and that's where the jail's at.
Yeah, I mean, just that spot where is the deepest. It used to be on the maps as the town fishing hole.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So it was, I mean, it's that close that this was the fishing hole for this town of Liberty.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here, but thank you so much, Dan, for showing us this property. It's amazing. I'm so happy. Like, I didn't know if I would ever be able to come and visit this. I saw it one other place. Ensign Peak Foundation had mentioned it, but said that it's on private property, so you have to like contact, you know, someone to get you on. And so it's one of those places I didn't think that I would see, but I'm so glad that I was able to. If you guys have the time, again, the email will be in the description box below. It's going to be according to availability, of course. So, but come here if you can. In all the other sites, I also have my map and my spreadsheet for all the church sites that I'm filming here in Missouri, in Iowa, in Nebraska, Kansas, and Illinois. Those are the places I've been so far. But just one more time, thank you for letting us see this.
You're welcome, and really quick, people are always welcome here. We do the email only because we want to be able to show you exactly where the site is, so that you know you're not wandering around or wondering if you're in the right place, and you don't want to trespass on somebody else's property. So that's the only reason we say it. And if you're in town, you can talk to the site missionaries, and the mission leaders have our phone number, and they can even contact us very easily.
Very good. Very good. All right, well, thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys later.